The philosopher's dilemma: citizen or seeker of truth. Can a philosopher truly be a citizen? This question, posed by Aristotle centuries ago, still resonates today. Aristotle believed that philosophers operate on a different plane. They seek truth beyond the confines of national borders. This pursuit sets them apart from ordinary citizens. Citizens are bound by loyalty to their nation and its laws. Philosophers, however, are bound by a higher calling. This conflict lies at the heart of understanding the philosopher's role in society. It highlights the tension between individual pursuit of truth and collective good. Philosophers challenge us to look beyond our immediate surroundings. They urge us to consider universal principles. This can be disruptive. It can also be enlightening. Aristotle's view forces us to confront a fundamental question. Can one be loyal to both a specific nation and universal truths? This question has no easy answers. It is a dilemma that continues to challenge us today. Aristotle's vision: transcending national borders. Aristotle envisioned a world where philosophers transcend national boundaries. He believed their pursuit of truth was not confined to any one nation or culture. This belief stemmed from his understanding of philosophical inquiry. He saw it as a search for universal principles. These principles apply to all humanity. This vision sets philosophers apart. They are not driven by national interests. They are driven by a desire for knowledge and understanding. This makes their perspective unique. They can offer insights that are not bound by cultural norms or political agendas. This concept of a borderless pursuit of knowledge is crucial to Aristotle's philosophy. It highlights the importance of seeking truth wherever it may lead. It also suggests that true knowledge is not bound by human constructs like nations. The pursuit of Eudaimonia, a universal aspiration. Aristotle believed that all humans strive for eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or living well. It is about reaching one's full potential. This pursuit for Aristotle was deeply intertwined with reason and virtue. It was not about personal gain or pleasure. For philosophers, the path to eudaimonia is clear. It lies in the pursuit of knowledge and the development of intellectual virtues. This is a lifelong pursuit. It requires dedication, discipline, and a willingness to question everything. This universal aspiration for eudaimonia connects all humans. It transcends cultural differences and societal norms. It suggests that at our core, we all strive for the same thing: to live a meaningful and fulfilling life. The citizen's duty, a life intertwined with the polis. In the heart of Aristotle's political philosophy lies the concept of the polis, the city-state, as the ideal ground for human flourishing. The polis for Aristotle was not just a geographical location. It was a living entity, a community where individuals came together to pursue the good life. Citizenship within this framework carried immense weight. It was an active engagement with the polis, a commitment to its well-being through participation, law-abiding conduct, and a shared sense of responsibility. For the ordinary citizen, life was deeply intertwined with the customs, laws, and values of the polis. Their identity was shaped by their belonging to this community. Their duties and obligations stemmed from this sense of belonging. The citizen's role was to contribute to the common good, to uphold the laws that governed them, and to participate in the decision-making processes that shaped their collective lives. This active participation in the polis was seen as essential for both individual and collective flourishing. By fulfilling their civic duties, citizens contributed to the stability and prosperity of the polis. In turn, the polis provided the framework for its citizens to live virtuous and meaningful lives. Section 2. The Philosopher's Dilemma. When universal truths collide with civic duty. The philosopher, however, faces a unique challenge within this framework. Their pursuit of truth, often leading them to question established norms and values, can clash with the expectations of citizenship. While the citizen is expected to uphold the laws of the polis, the philosopher might find those very laws to be at odds with higher, universal principles. This tension lies at the heart of the philosopher's dilemma. Their allegiance is not just to the polis, but to truth itself. This allegiance might require them to challenge the status quo, to question the very foundations upon which the polis is built. Such actions, while potentially beneficial in the long run, can be perceived as disruptive and even dangerous to the stability of the polis. This is not to say that the philosopher disregards the importance of the polis, rather they see it through a different lens. Their pursuit of truth is not meant to undermine the community, but to potentially elevate it, to help it align with a higher moral and intellectual order. Section 3. Challenging the status quo, the philosopher as a catalyst for change. The philosopher's questioning nature, though potentially disruptive, is also the source of their unique contribution to society. By challenging established norms and values, philosophers act as catalysts for change, pushing the polis to examine itself and strive for improvement. Their pursuit of universal truths can lead to the uncovering of injustices, inconsistencies, and hypocrisies within the existing social order. This critical examination, though often uncomfortable, is essential for the growth and evolution of any society. The philosopher, in their willingness to question and challenge, becomes the conscience of the polis, reminding its citizens of the ideals they strive for and the potential for improvement that always exists. This role, however, is not without its risks. Challenging the status quo often invites resistance and even hostility. The philosopher's ideas, particularly when they threaten those in power or undermine deeply held beliefs, can lead to persecution and ostracization. Section 1. Beyond the horizon, the philosopher's quest for universal principles. The philosopher's journey is often described as a quest for truth, but what kind of truth are they seeking? It's not merely the accumulation of facts or the mastery of specialized knowledge. The philosopher seeks something deeper, more fundamental universal principles that underpin the very fabric of reality and human experience. These principles are not bound by time, culture, or individual perspective. They are the enduring truths that lie at the heart of existence itself. This quest takes the philosopher beyond the familiar horizons of their own society and culture. They must be willing to question everything they have been taught, to step outside the comforting embrace of their own worldview and confront the vastness of human thought and experience. This requires intellectual courage, a willingness to grapple with uncertainty, and an unyielding commitment to following the path of reason, wherever it may lead. The philosopher's tools in this endeavor are logic, reason, and critical thinking. They scrutinize arguments, dissect assumptions, and relentlessly pursue clarity and coherence. Their aim is not to impose their own beliefs, but to uncover truths that are universally valid, truths that can withstand the test of time and transcend the limitations of any particular perspective. Section 2. Detachment and Objectivity, Escaping the Cave of Parochialism. To embark on this quest for universal principles, the philosopher must cultivate a certain degree of detachment from their own personal biases and the prevailing opinions of their society. This detachment is not a rejection of their own culture or a retreat into isolation. Rather, it is a necessary step towards achieving objectivity, a way of seeing the world and its complexities with greater clarity and understanding. This process of detachment can be likened to escaping from a cave, as Plato famously described in his allegory. Just as the prisoners in the cave mistake shadows for reality, we can become trapped by our own limited perspectives, mistaking the familiar for the absolute. The philosopher's task is to break free from these chains of perception, to emerge from the cave of parochialism and embrace the wider world of knowledge and understanding. This detachment allows the philosopher to see beyond the superficial differences that often divide people and cultures. They recognize that beneath the surface of diverse customs, beliefs and values lie shared human experiences, common aspirations, and universal principles that bind us together as a species. To Section 3. Reason as a unifying force, bridging the divide between cultures. In a world often fragmented by cultural differences and conflicting ideologies, the philosopher's pursuit of universal principles offers a beacon of hope. Reason, as the foundation of philosophical inquiry, transcends cultural boundaries and provides a common ground for understanding and communication. Through the rigorous application of logic and critical thinking, philosophers from different backgrounds can engage in meaningful dialogue, challenge each other's assumptions, and work towards shared understanding. This process of intellectual exchange and collaboration is essential for bridging the divides that often separate us. By engaging with diverse philosophical traditions and perspectives, philosophers can identify common threads of thought, uncover hidden assumptions, and develop more nuanced and comprehensive understandings of the world and our place within it. The universality of reason does not imply a monolithic uniformity of thought. Philosophical inquiry, by its very nature, is open-ended and ever-evolving. Different cultures and traditions will inevitably approach philosophical questions from unique perspectives, enriching the global conversation with their insights and challenging others to expand their own horizons. It is through this ongoing dialogue, fueled by reason and a shared commitment to truth, that we can hope to build bridges of understanding across the divides that too often separate us. Section 1. Guardians of Truth. The philosopher's role in shaping a just society. The philosopher's pursuit of truth, while often conducted in the solitude of contemplation, is not merely an abstract intellectual exercise. It carries with it a profound responsibility to contribute to the creation of a just and virtuous society. Aristotle recognized that the philosopher, armed with their understanding of universal principles and their ability to see beyond the immediate, has a crucial role to play in guiding the polis towards its highest ideals. This responsibility stems from the recognition that a society cannot thrive on pragmatism and self-interest alone. It needs a moral compass, a set of guiding principles that provide a framework for ethical decision-making and collective action. The philosopher, through their pursuit of truth and their commitment to justice, helps to shape and define these principles, providing a foundation for a society that is not only prosperous, but also just and equitable. This is not to say that the philosopher dictates the laws or imposes their will upon the polis. Their role is more subtle, more akin to that of a guide or advisor. Through their writings, teachings, and public discourse, philosophers illuminate the path towards a just society, challenging citizens to examine their own beliefs and actions in light of universal principles. Section 2. A delicate balance, navigating the tension between criticism and cohesion. The philosopher's role in society is not without its challenges. Their commitment to truth often requires them to act as critics of the status quo, challenging established norms, questioning authority, and exposing hypocrisy and injustice wherever they find it. While this critical function is essential for the health and progress of any society, it can also generate tension and conflict, particularly when it threatens the interests of those in power or undermines deeply held beliefs. Navigating this tension between criticism and cohesion requires a delicate balance. The philosopher must be courageous in their pursuit of truth, unwilling to compromise their principles for the sake of popularity or expediency. At the same time, they must be mindful of the potential consequences of their words and actions, recognizing that reckless criticism can undermine the very foundations of a just society. This balancing act requires wisdom, empathy, and a deep understanding of human nature. The philosopher must be able to articulate their criticisms in a way that is both incisive and constructive, challenging assumptions without resorting to personal attacks or inflammatory rhetoric. Their aim should be to enlighten and persuade, not to alienate or provoke. Section 3. Speaking truth to power, the philosopher as a catalyst for moral progress. One of the most important roles of the philosopher is to speak truth to power, to hold those in authority accountable to the principles of justice and righteousness. This is never an easy task. Power often breeds arrogance, a sense of entitlement that can blind those who wield it to the needs and perspectives of others. The philosopher, with their commitment to truth and their willingness to challenge the status quo, acts as a necessary counterbalance, reminding those in power that they are not above the law and that their actions have consequences for all members of society. This role of speaking truth to power is not limited to critiquing the actions of rulers and governments. It also extends to challenging the prevailing opinions and prejudices of the majority, to giving voice to the marginalized and the oppressed. The philosopher, with their ability to see beyond the superficial differences that often divide us, recognizes the inherent dignity and worth of all human beings and speaks out against any form of injustice or discrimination. This can be a dangerous undertaking. Those who challenge the status quo, who dare to question the prevailing orthodoxy, often face resistance, ridicule, and even persecution. Yet it is precisely in these moments of challenge and dissent that the philosopher's voice is most needed, for it is through their willingness to speak truth to power that we as a society are able to progress towards a more just and equitable future. Universal truths, the bedrock of a shared human experience. The philosopher's quest for truth extends beyond the realm of abstract ideas. It delves into the very core of human experience, seeking out those fundamental truths that bind us together as a species. These are not truths confined to any particular culture, time period, or set of beliefs, but rather universal principles that resonate across boundaries, connecting us through our shared humanity. These universal truths might encompass concepts like justice, fairness, compassion, and the inherent dignity of every individual. They form the bedrock upon which a just and equitable society can be built, providing a common moral compass that transcends the often arbitrary distinctions of culture, religion, or political ideology. The philosopher's role is to uncover and articulate these universal truths, making them accessible to all and reminding us of our shared humanity in a world often fragmented by division and conflict. They remind us that despite our differences, we are all bound by the same fundamental moral principles, and that a just and equitable society must be founded upon this recognition. The clash of ideologies, when philosophical inquiry confronts political power. The pursuit of universal truths, however, often brings the philosopher into direct conflict with political power. Governments and rulers throughout history have often sought to impose their own ideologies, their own versions of truth upon the populace, using propaganda, censorship, and even force to suppress dissenting voices. The philosopher, with their unwavering commitment to truth and their willingness to question authority, poses a direct threat to such regimes. Their inquiries, their challenges to dogma, and their insistence on independent thought undermine the very foundations upon which authoritarian power rests. This conflict is not limited to totalitarian regimes. Even in democratic societies, the tension between philosophical inquiry and political expediency can be palpable. Governments, driven by the need to maintain order, garner support, and pursue their own agendas, may find themselves tempted to suppress or distort truths that threaten their power or popularity. The philosopher's burden, navigating the treacherous path between truth and tyranny. The philosopher, then, walks a treacherous path, constantly navigating the tension between their commitment to truth and the pressures exerted by political power. They must be courageous in their convictions, willing to speak truth to power even when it comes at a personal cost. Yet, they must also be strategic and discerning, recognizing that reckless confrontation can lead to their own silencing and the suppression of the very ideas they seek to promote. Finding the right balance between speaking out and protecting oneself, between challenging power and ensuring that one's voice continues to be heard, is one of the philosopher's greatest challenges. This burden is not theirs alone to bear. A society that values truth, justice, and the open exchange of ideas has a responsibility to protect and empower its philosophers, to create spaces where they can pursue their inquiries freely and without fear of reprisal. For it is through their unwavering pursuit of truth that we, as a society, are able to hold a mirror up to ourselves, to examine our own assumptions, and to strive towards a more just and enlightened future. The paradox of the philosopher, a citizen of the world, yet forever exiled. The philosopher's journey, as we have seen, is one fraught with paradox. Driven by a thirst for universal truths, they transcend the confines of national identity and cultural boundaries, becoming in a sense citizens of the world. Their allegiance is to truth itself, to principles that bind us together as human beings, rather than to the arbitrary lines drawn on a map. Yet this very commitment to a broader perspective, to principles that often challenge the status quo, can leave them feeling like perpetual exiles, even within their own communities. Their willingness to question, to challenge and to expose hypocrisy can make them seem like disruptive forces, threats to the established order. Their loyalty to truth may be mistaken for disloyalty to their nation, their pursuit of justice misconstrued as a betrayal of tradition. This sense of exile, however, is not necessarily a mark of failure. It can also be a source of strength, a testament to the philosopher's unwavering commitment to truth, even in the face of opposition and misunderstanding. It is a reminder that the pursuit of justice, of a more equitable and enlightened society, often requires individuals to stand apart, to challenge the prevailing winds, and to speak truth to power even at a personal cost. The philosopher's journey, then, is not for the faint of heart. It demands courage, integrity, and a deep-seated belief in the power of ideas to change the world. It is a journey that may lead them far from home, but one that ultimately enriches the world with their insights, challenges our assumptions, and inspires us to strive for a better future.